I'm Robin Reed.
And I'm Tara Williamson.
Well, it's great to see you, Tara. We haven't been working together for a while because, I don't know, I've been busy, you've been busy. Does that kind of sum it up pretty well?
Oh, yeah, but I'm about to have a few-month break here in the winter time where I do nothing except rest and relax on the farm.
Yeah, I don't believe a word of that, but that's nice that you put it that way. So I have some news for you. On the Reed LLC farm, we sold all our pumpkins.
Congratulations. Okay, so it's been a profitable, successful year.
That's what the paperwork says. However, I did discover that in my enthusiasm for wholesaling out all of our pumpkins, I did make a critical mistake. I didn't leave any for our family here who are coming to visit. And where are Pops's pumpkins? Well, they were wholesaled and farmers marketed around, and so I have none. So at this point, I'm going to ask you, can I come to your place in about a week and buy a pumpkin or two? Would that be okay?
Oh, yeah, I've already marked yours up for yourself, so yeah.
Marked it
Come
up.
on.
Oh,
Yep,
great.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of relationship we have. Excellent. So that's what happened to me in the short term. What's been happening with you?
Gosh, well, I told you we just got the goats a few weeks ago, so that has been rocking and rolling. So we have officially named them Nimbus and Cirrus. So I figured that might be a little bit, yes, up your alley there. And we just moved the sheep to a new pasture. Louie, our ram, is back on site, so he's been doing a wonderful job already. And things are kind of gearing up. We have the planter this week, actually the seed drill, so we've been putting everything in the ground. Silage bales have been wrapped. Everything's going pretty well so far. Definitely in comparison to some other parts of the state. So we've been very active, listening to families, seeing what they need down in Freeze, Independence. So we've been it's been a lot going on.
I'll bet.
Very busy.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. And I kind of goofed up my question to you. I wrote this down because I thought you might like the wording, but I was going to ask you what kind of fertile ground we were going to cover today. Sorry.
Well, okay. I'm going to try to think of an appropriate joke too, since I was talking about Louie coming on back, making very fertile ground there.
Yeah, we're rolling. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. We got it going on. Hey, I wanted to tell you a little bit about. Well, before I do that, it has been amazing going around Botetourt County, Montgomery County, any of our surrounding counties where agriculture is still a very prominent and important part of their economy. There is something about fall festivals that just makes you happy, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes.
And it hasn't been raining, and I'll mention that in a minute, but it's been wonderful fall festival weather, and the displays of corn, the corn stalks, the scarecrows, whatever you want to say. It's been gorgeous this year, and it makes me very happy. How about you?
Well, fall's my favorite season, period. I think there's something about it. It just gets a little crisp, a little cool, and us humans as animals, we just get excited. It's just our perfect little temperature, and we start scurrying about just like other animals, just prepping for the winter time. Whether we know it or not, we get excited. There's that anticipation there. Get ready.
Exactly.
And so that's very palpable.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just feel like nature gave us a smile there.
It did.
A little bit of a weird summer. We were all droughty for a while. I remember our first couple podcasts, all we were talking about was drought. And then the next couple of podcasts, all we're talking about is water.
Yes.
And now we're talking about how beautiful it is. So nice circle there. I think it all worked out pretty good.
The Goldilocks zone.
You know, one of the stories I thought might be rich in this project is changing weather. We kind of understand that relationship between nature and farmers, and so I know that we're going to do that on each episode, but the concept of successful farming would be just about impossible if the weather didn't change. And what's been really odd about this summer is the weather hasn't changed. It's been the same for long periods of time. The drought was a good example. For months and months, no significant moisture, and then it wouldn't stop raining. And then now we've gone, as we're recording this, we've gone a full month without a drop of rain. Mm-hmm. And again, it's starting to make me wonder a little bit about the balance of what's happening with the rhythms this year, where we didn't have, 10 days, a front, a shower, 9 days, 4 days, 2 days with showers, change in temperature, warmed up. That hasn't happened at all this year. It's been very sort of blocked out, and that's actually a good weather term. The weather patterns have been blocking each other. And so now we're in a kind of a very, very dry time, at a time when people seem to like it very much. So anecdotally, it seems very strange. Has this ever happened before?
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask you. Historically, is this an anomaly?
No.
Okay.
If you and you'll love this pathway I'm going to go on. You love data. There is no science that I can think of that's more dependent on good data. Data, temperatures, winds, whatever. And when you go back and you look, like you like to look in the historical records and look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, it happened in 19 whatever, and it happened in 19 whatever and whatever. But we forget. It's been, I don't know, 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years since it happened this way. So yes, it's happened before, but we don't remember it.
But is this an expected pattern? Every so often this will occur and it's expected and normal?
Yes, but it's hard to predict it. You don't know when it's going to occur. Yes, it will happen, but you don't know when it's coming. This time around, look at what happened with the hurricanes. They were monsters. They were unexpected, or were they? No, they actually were expected, and they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger because of good data. So the data is the key, and data is how farmers live. They really, boy, I've seen some shows recently, Saturday morning you wake up and you watch some interesting farming shows, right?
Who has time for that?
That's, well, just for a minute or two. And the science and the technology that are on these tractors now, these things are rolling, I don't know, computers, right?
We do. We actually have a GPS for the tractor we got last year. It is fantastic. Our yields are astronomically better than what they used to be.
So I was thinking, here's my other drop of witticism for you here. As we're looking out the barn door this year, the weather has been puzzling, Tara.
It sure has. I'd be puzzled because I don't have a barn door
there
anymore.
You go. Well, no, that was a fire that we didn't want to talk about anymore. But anyway, so Botetourt in particular has been having this none on the horizon thing. No rain or too much rain. We've been much warmer than normal as we record this, and it's going to get much colder than normal. However, let's look at it this way. Good news for the folks recovering from tropical flooding. It hasn't rained for a month. Good news there. Good news for folks staging the outdoor events that I mentioned, because they're crucial to the bottom line. Good news for leaf peeping, stargazing, and the rare sighting of the northern lights this far south. If it was cloudy or rainy or whatever, we couldn't see those beautiful views, and we got them all. So we've begun to touch on this data thing. Lots and lots of data out there. Our memories will say, man, this hasn't happened before. I've never remembered this happening before. Well, it happened when you weren't here to remember that. So our patterns of these long dry spells followed by not just a little rain, but a lot of rain, flooding rain, and then back to the drought is something we're going to have to put up with. The numbers are in. Speaking of data, Tara, the Virginia Tech ag departments have been coming up with some of the numbers of this last flooding event, which Courtney talked about very well in our podcast last time, saying, hey, this Southwest Virginia really took a hit. It turned out to be just shy of $160 million. And what's interesting is when you look at the way that it impacted the farmers, it's kind of where you would expect it to be. But I was, I guess, a little bit surprised that the largest damaging number in terms of total farm losses had to do with fences and structures.
Yep.
And I was thinking something entirely different, although those numbers are pretty big. But when you take out the fence, you take out the farm. If it's cattle, if it's goats, if it's sheep, it's chicken, whatever. You take out the fence, you don't have a farm now.
Right. And not just immediately, which, you're going to see the effect immediately, but now in the long term. You think about fence repairs, just putting in a fence. These are prolonged delays.
$54 million in downed fencing and broken fencing in just a few counties in Southwest Virginia. $61 million of damage occurred in Grayson County alone. And that was just so much water, no place to go. When you look at the pictures of a cornfield that's been flattened by, water's heavy. It just pushes it all to the ground, and then it can't be fixed in any way, shape, or form. The vegetable and crop damage estimate at $38 million, and that included things like timber and hay, and hold on to my heart, pumpkins. It was their time. They were in the field. They were ready to go. They floated downstream after this happened. So that hurt me in a very personal way. But almost $160 million, that's a big number.
That is. And you actually raise another question I was thinking about. When we're talking about these the flooding and with the deposits. Are we talking about sand deposits too coming from the river? I know my family experienced a lot of that, literally tons of sand from the new river up on the property. I just wonder how that's going to affect next year as well.
Yeah, in the short term, I'm sure it's damaging. In the long term, strangely, that kind of silt drop down, fertile soil drop down, if you have time to let that work, it makes the land more fertile, but not in the short term. You're dealing with muck and stuff, and it doesn't help anybody. So
yeah, problem with farming is it is so calculated. We depend on these little timetables. So
we do. We put our spreadsheets out there and hope for the best. So we started off today saying that we were going to talk about sort of old things like dirt. And since we're talking about muck right now, we'll go to dry muck and we'll start talking about dirt. Tell me what you're thinking a little bit about this episode here. What kinds of things do you want to jump into?
So I know we were talking about Botetourt, how special Botetourt, this whole area is. And I was thinking about kind of what defines an area in just a land itself. And so you actually have the geologic features. We have beautiful mountains here, gorgeous rivers. But then most importantly, what also defines an area is its people. That's the foundation of an actual culture in that area. And we want to go all the way back. So we're going to go back to the old families, the oldest dirt legacy agricultural families, farming families in this county.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
As a person who's only lived in this county for, 15, 16, 18 years, whatever it is, we're still considered new people. No, not only you're not native, but you haven't been here very long.
Yes. As a transplant, it is very difficult to assimilate and be accepted into a...
So what are you talking about when you're talking about old as dirt?
So old as dirt, we have families here that go all the way back to the 1700s. From the inception of Botetourt as a county, they've been here and continue to be here, some of them on the exact same properties that their forefathers founded their property on. It's fascinating. When you look back at the 1700s original maps of Botetourt, some of these family names are there where they're still living. They have graveyards on their properties from their great-great-great going all the way back with the exact same name with some of the cases.
It is. Don't you find going through, let me phrase this properly, graveyards are an interesting place, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
And I just, I marvel sometimes when I walk through them and go, have no idea who this person was, but they were buried here in 1735, or whatever it is. And then that just opens up your imagination to what did it look like for them? What was it like for them?
What I like is when you think about it that way, and not to get too out there with it, but these people, you do know them because you know their descendants around here because there's so many families that have never moved, and the blood is completely intermingled. Ask Tom. Oh my, everybody's related. I can't say anything. My family's straight from Appalachians. That's a different case there. But so you actually have layers upon layers. So you kind of do know them in a way, because their experiences have affected their descendants and so forth. So you kind of do know them because they're making their people what they are today. They enriched and created the culture from scratch. So you do know them.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way. So what does it mean? So many people today are only thinking about today, and maybe they're thinking about yesterday and saying, I don't want a part of that. I don't want to have anything to do with that. Or maybe in 4 generations of families, the second or third generation went, this is too hard. We don't want to do this. And then the fields are forgotten for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
What brings that next generation along the pathway to say, well, I want to do that. That sounds interesting to me. But they're in a whole different world now.
Mm-hmm.
They have experience only from their elders telling them what they did before, but they didn't do it initially. What does that look like? Is that something that's like harder to do than you could ever imagine?
Get back in from scratch.
Yeah.
Tom and I did it, and it was not easy.
Yeah.
That's probably a euphemism for what was going on.
Yeah.
And we had the property. It had been in the family for 100 years, basically. And we were starting out with essentially nothing again. Starting a farm is incredibly expensive, and we didn't have the equipment for it. So you're talking about upfront capital expenses. If you're brand new, we're trying to expand land availability, and you may have a little slice, but we still have nothing that the family used to have.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with just a fragment of the original property. So it's a lot to take on. There's a lot of knowledge that, just like these layers that we were talking about, is like soil. It's knowledge upon knowledge upon knowledge. So if you even lost that for 1 to 2 generations, you're basically starting from ground zero. There's so much that you have to instill and just know almost innately to be a farmer.
And yet the end product is actually different, isn't it? Because, I don't know, a couple 100 years ago, you grew for a certain purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Very often it was just to stay alive,
mm-hmm.
just to continue to be your little house on the prairie. But now the amount of effort that it goes into to create a sustainable product with all the expectations of today's world, lots of pieces have to come together.
Absolutely. And you start getting into dealing with the government and some of those regulations, some of those label claims, and that's opening up a whole other thing if that's your market for that, if that's what you're trying to do. But you're right. People back then, they were so broad. They were homesteading. They had to know everything. They were dabbling in a little bit, like the barn, of course, that burned down. We're so excited to create it from scratch again because it's going to suit our needs. Where back in the day, they had the little parlor downstairs. They could milk 4. They had the little areas where they would store their animals. They had their manger area, but we don't need that as much anymore. Times have changed completely. Now we're more specialized. We're either doing wholesale, we're doing direct, we're doing just beef. A completely different situation now.
When Courtney was here, obviously she's been in the dairy industry all of her life, and then her family's in the family before that. Mm-hmm. When you look at farming today, is it all about specialization? Is that what it takes to survive?
No, I mean, it depends on what type of market you want to do and your audience, but I would... That's a very, very good question, and I think you should think a lot about that if you're a new emerging farmer, what type of a market you're trying to not corner, but just enter in the first place. You really need a game plan and exactly who you're going to target. And that could be highly specialized. You need a game plan from the get-go.
That, and a good example of that, Virginia's funny. In Thomas Jefferson's day, he couldn't grow a grapevine to save his life. Mm-hmm. Every time he planted one, it didn't work out. And then he did it again, and then it didn't work out. And so Charlottesville has this history of not being able to grow grapes. But he had traveled to France, and he saw how beautiful it was and how it could be done, and he insisted that that could happen. Well, it didn't happen in his lifetime. Fast forward to today. Now in Virginia, we have literally hundreds of vineyards and hundreds of wines being made and cellared and all that sort of stuff. But that has to be one of the most difficult things to try to do in Virginia, and yet people still keep trying to do it.
Well, I think you actually made a very good point, and I'm going to backtrack on some of my stuff because I think I've already changed my opinion a little bit since thinking about and listening to you. So, and I'm completely okay with admitting that. But I think farmers, agriculturalists for sure, they're entrepreneurs at heart. They're passionate, creative, innovative people. And when they get an idea, just a seed of an idea, literally, they'll just throw it out and see if I sow this, what can I reap from this? And they're extremely diverse. I mean, we're throwing out, casting tons of lines everywhere and seeing what's going to take, what hook's going to be a good hook. And you have to be versatile, and diversity is key with these operations. So I think I might amend my opinion there a little bit.
And you threw in a fishing pivot there, so that was kind of fun. I like that. Casting, hooking, way to go.
Yes, but always trying new ideas and seeing what will stick, just like Jefferson.
Truthfully, when we first moved out to Botetourt, we had tinkered around with the idea of growing grapes and possibly, selling them for winemaking. And Teresa, my wife, went and worked for a vineyard for a while to learn. And I went and interned on the weekends at a vineyard to learn. And after 2 years of that, we came home and said, no.
Also important, yes.
No. It's just, it's so much work, and yet it's so satisfying for the people that do it. It's such a passion project. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, passion projects are great, but at the end of the day, you still have to make a living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Often you don't.
Yeah, I mean, once you start making a living, sometimes that passion can dwindle a little bit.
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
All right, so we talked briefly in another podcast about we're getting ready to pivot seasons and what needs to be done. At this point, we're in late October. It's time for trick-or-treating. It's time for, thinking about family visits or whatever. What really is occupying you and Tom and thinking about what people did in the past versus what you guys are going to be doing?
For our holiday traditions?
Yeah.
For us, I mean, we're trying to always establish and keep those traditions because I think that's what, it's based on memory. That's what gives it such gravity. So I don't think we're trying to think of anything new necessarily there, where I'm really about kind of reviving the old ways and in a new way. So I guess that is a new tradition, but by bringing the old ones back. I don't know. We can scrap that. Let me think some more.
the audience like that one.
Oh.
We can pivot.
New things we're thinking about doing.
Yeah.
Well, Tom shot down my whole, well, you don't have to put this in there, but Tom shot down my little Dia de los Muertos kind of setup because he said it's too woo. But I thought that would be a very cool kind of tradition to bring up. But we haven't, I like reviving the old traditions.
Okay.
Yeah. What are y'all doing?
Whatever Teresa tells me we're doing.
Okay. Well, that's wise. See, that's very, very wise. You have learned from your mistakes there.
Well, she knows I'm an adult, so I don't have good ideas. She wanted to put a scarecrow in the other day, and we did, and then it rained for like 9 days straight. So the challenge was to keep that bad boy standing up there in the rain, and he did okay.
Well, okay, what we did try to start doing was I told Jack we're going to start decorating out front of the farm stand. So every holiday, and I wanted to do it last year, but of course, you know how construction got completely delayed, and we didn't open up until March.
Sure.
But I want to do these beautiful kind of corn stalk, the arches with the shocks and everything. And so we were so excited this year. We took the ATV out. Jack helped me. We got the snippers and cut down all these beautiful shocks and made them. And then I came back in and I had, I have sensitive little Callaway eyes.
Yes, you do.
And it's so bad.
Yeah.
I had hives everywhere, little micro cuts everywhere. It was worth it, but it still didn't look nearly as pretty as we thought. And after about 3 hours of decorating, it kind of loses its
luster.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry I asked you that question because it seemed like a thing there. I thought you were going to say poison ivy, but it's bad enough to get the little cuts. So
yes, but
I get it. All right. Old as dirt. So we're still thinking about old as dirt. In your time in farming, both good days and bad days, when it comes to something that's old, something that either works or doesn't work that you've learned from, whether it's equipment, whether it's seeds, whether it's what you ended up with in the end, are the old ways still the good ways?
The old ways are good ways in that we have learned from them and
Yes.
we have used them to catapult us to better innovations. So for sure, I would say they're good, but we've improved upon them, which I would hope we would all want to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? But actually, we do have, so you know how we grow corn on the farm and we use it for our cornmeal and grind it and everything. We grew popcorn for the first time this year, which we're about to release that to the public. So excited about that. But to shell our corn, and I think we've posted a video of it a couple times before, we have this antique corn sheller from 1904, 1906.
Nice.
And we still use that. We still use it. We put on this giant tub and we sit there on a little stool and it's the coolest thing. And it's just, I would love to meet who actually invented it because the little gears and the mechanisms are fascinating. But this little baby's been pounding out, shelling corn for over 100 years. And I don't think we could actually improve upon that at all. So it's been doing a really good job.
If you need a test market for that popcorn, our family is fans. Yeah, we can do that. Everybody likes that. All right, so that's what's old. We've talked about what's new. Can you share with our audience what we're going to be dealing with in our next podcast?
So this time we've covered all the very old families, the foundational, the legacies, and the older generations talking about those times and passed down through history. Next, we're going to talk about the opposite. We're going to talk about the new ones, the fresh generations, the new emerging little sprouts coming into agriculture farming for the first time, the youth.
Well, I'll be there for that.
Okay, why?
It better be. Somebody has to start the button, right? So. Oh, gracious, my goodness. Well, we're ending up October very, very shortly. Any last thoughts about how the month went and how hard you're looking forward to what's ahead?
I think it was beautiful. Like you said, we actually had absolute perfect weather. Seeing the northern lights blew my mind. That was amazing. And I'm excited for what's going to come. Everything looks fresh and crisp.
So are we. And we hope that you'll join us here as well on the Forgotten Fields Project. We are now up and running on your favorite podcast entity. So check us out, whether it be Amazon or whether it be Apple or whether it be Spotify, you name it, you can listen to us. And our website, of course, is available to you 24/7 with the latest things that we're thinking about and dropping. And you can always drop us a line as well. Let us know what you think. Maybe a topic that we haven't thought about. Tara and I and Teresa think a lot about things, but we don't have a corner on the market. So if you got something good, send it, right?
Please. Yes.
Outstanding. Well, we'll see you next time. You guys have a great day.